Hello, welcome to Inside Data with Scott. Thank you so much for checking us out. Today we're going to go over data science at the beginner level. Maybe you want to know if a career in data science is right for you, or you just want to learn some data science skills. Either way, the Titanic competition from Kaggle is the best place to start. There are a lot of videos about the Kaggle Titanic competition, and some of them are very good. My favorite is linked in the description below. However, they all just tell you how they got the answer, or rather they just tell you what the answer is. They basically just give you the answer. It's almost like watching a cooking show, where they tell you the steps you need to complete in order to achieve the final product. But data science is not like cooking. In my opinion, it makes more sense to give you the concepts you need to get started and then let you try the competition on your own. Of course, with this approach, it'll take more of your time. If you've literally never made a data science model before, but you know some basic Python, you should expect to spend about 10 good hours on this competition. That could be more or less depending on your experience with data modeling and programming. That may seem like a lot, but after you're done, you should know if data science is interesting to you or not, and you should have learned a thing or two along the way. And that's why I wanted to create this video to help you get started on your data science journey. First of all, what is Kaggle? Kaggle is a website where data scientists can make models and show off their skill. For a data scientist, having a Kaggle account is fairly important, and most data scientists will mention Kaggle on their resume. In a basic scenario, a dataset is submitted to Kaggle. Kaggle makes part of that dataset public so people can train their models. Then, Kaggle scores those models against the hidden part of the dataset, and the model with the highest accuracy wins. It's really super fun once you get into it, almost like playing a video game. Unlike most competitions, the Titanic competition does not have a time limit or expiration date. It is for beginners to get used to the Kaggle format, and it is widely considered to be the best introduction to data science in existence. When you go to the landing page of the competition, it says, "Ahoy, welcome to Kaggle. You're in the right place." The goal of the competition is to predict who would survive the Titanic disaster based on demographic and other information. The Titanic dataset is a dataset of 1,309 rows, where each row is a passenger that was on the Titanic. The dependent variable is a 1 or 0, indicating whether or not that passenger survived the Titanic disaster. There are 10 feature variables, including age, gender, and other information, such as how much money they paid for their ticket. The reason why this is such a great beginner dataset is because the business logic is immediately understandable. Almost anyone who knows the story of the Titanic disaster should be able to easily come up with ideas. For me personally, I happen to know that women and children were prioritized when the crew evacuated the passengers into lifeboats that were eventually rescued. The only difficult thing about this dataset is that it's pretty noisy. Surviving the Titanic disaster involved a good deal of luck. Okay, we are almost ready to get started. First things first, we need to set ourselves up to iterate. Data science is, at its core, about iteration. You always need to be thinking about how to automate things in order to make iteration easier. We will start with some code to interact with the Kaggle API.
So, after you log into your Kaggle account, you can download your API token. All the code I write for this video will be in the description. I recommend using Jupyter Notebooks as an easy way to get started with data science. You can connect to the Kaggle API with the Kaggle Python library. First, we're going to bring up a list of available Kaggle competitions. We find the Titanic competition and download the data files we need to get started. Once we unzip, we can load our train and test datasets into pandas.
Now you might be asking, what is the minimum score I should try to achieve? This is an excellent question. Whenever I start a new data science project at work, I always create a benchmark model so I know what score is possible to achieve with only the most basic logic and assumptions. Let's go through my benchmark model together. We won't use any machine learning, just business logic, but as you're going to see, it will still work pretty well.
First, I create a function where I implement my business logic. If the gender is female, I predict that the passenger will survive. If the age is less than 10, I predict the passenger will survive. I predict all other passengers will not. I apply this business logic to the testing dataset to get my predictions. To upload a submission file to Kaggle, you only need two columns, the passenger ID column and the column that holds your predictions. Once you submit your prediction, you can view your score. This business logic attained a 76.8% accuracy on the Kaggle test set.
Now, the next step is to try to beat our benchmark score using machine learning. It's going to be extremely frustrating and difficult to beat it, but I would say if you do, you're officially a data scientist. However, you can only call yourself a data scientist if you use data science methods to beat the benchmark score, and this is exactly what I want to talk about next. Okay. Another question you might be asking is, what is the maximum score you can get on the Titanic competition? Well, let's take a look at some of the top scores. You will see that all of these scores are 100% accuracy. That probably shouldn't be too surprising, considering that the Titanic sank over 100 years ago, and there's no reason to predict any of the passengers incorrectly. But I want you to think about this concept in a slightly different way. Now let's consider this code that I'm writing, in which I will use it to achieve a perfect score using iteration.
I'll write this in pseudocode. Let's imagine a class called submission that holds our prediction submission file. We have a method that submits the predictions and returns the Kaggle score. We have another method that reverses the prediction for a given row. Then, we iterate over all 418 rows and update our submission file if the Kaggle score improves.
This code will certainly get a 100% perfect score, but it is not data science. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, Scott, you said data science was all about iteration, and this code does exactly that. Well, while the iteration part is great, the real problem with this code is that it's cheating, in a way. We are looking at the answer more times than we really should. In real life, getting the model wrong, even at first, can have negative consequences, so we should try not to do that. When doing the competition yourself, you should be careful to only submit your predictions a handful of times. I would say 5 times is appropriate. Now, there's a lot wrapped up in that concept, obviously. But the key concept I want you to take away from here is that you can always improve your score by iterating. You can always get to 100% if you want to. So, when do you stop? If you can always make your score better, then how do you know when enough is enough? When can you say, okay, I did it. I solved the Titanic competition? Well, there's obviously no hard answer to that question. I would say if you get a score of 78%, you can stop, you can say, hey, I did it, and you can move on to competitions that give cash prizes. Now, has anyone ever gotten higher than a 78% on their very first submission? Well, of course, but they weren't novice data scientists. If you get a 79 or 80% within your first 5 submissions, you should be very, very proud of yourself. And even if you only get 77%, I will still say you did some very good data science. Now, as you can see, our benchmark solution already has 76.8% accuracy, which means you only need to improve that score by a little more than 1% to win the Titanic competition. Trust me, it's a lot harder than it looks. Good luck. If you have any questions, be sure to comment below and I can respond and give you an answer. Also, be sure to subscribe and you'll be notified if there's a new video for more content. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys listening to everything. Thank you. I love you guys.